right, so today we're going to dive into NFTs and whether or not the NFT gas wars will continue. Will we see these super drops continue to struggle? Let's dive in deep. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into TechPath. Today, I'm going to be diving into this with a person that we've had on the channel before, and it was a really good interview. It was a bit of a controversial subject. We had a lot of interesting comments, but we want to bring him back on to really kind of break this down. I feel like he's probably one of the experts, foremost experts in the field of what we're seeing when it comes to NFTs, and that is Mr. William Quigley, who is the co-founder of WAXP and also the co-founder of Tether. Great to have you back on.
Good to be here.
Excellent. William, let's get into it quickly here on, I know you're on a time crunch, but I want to get a few questions outlined. Obviously, the biggest one is these massive drops, NFT drops that, of course, have been occurring. Ape was obviously the most recent one, and this one, of course, had some struggles as well. Do you think that we are in a state right now with Ethereum of it being the true platform of choice to be able to handle these big mega drops in the future?
No, I've never believed that Ethereum was the right place for NFTs. I was a very big investor in the crowd sale. I'm a fan of Ethereum for many things, but when it comes to consumer mass market applications, I am not, because that's really not what it's designed for. It doesn't do it well. As all of your audience knows, uh, Ethereum uses the Uber surge pricing model for clearing out the queue. There's never an inability to process a transaction, but you will pay top market prices if there's a lot of congestion. And I just don't think that really works for consumers. They want more predictability when it comes to understanding what they're going to pay. What it does have, what Ethereum does bring, is people with very deep pockets. Even today, after all the carnage in the crypto markets the past couple of weeks, Ethereum still has what, like a 250 billion market cap. So there's
Right.
lots of people who are crypto rich, and that is the reason that NFT drops are continuing on Ethereum.
So for for your sake of understanding, and when we talked last, I mean, you really kind of drilled down into kind of some of the mechanics of what needed to happen, both in the NFT and collectible space for mass adoption to occur. And your thought is that really to be able to handle these big B2B or B2C type drops that have these massive marketing campaigns behind them, especially with something like Yuga Labs and what Ape did. But there's many others. There's many others coming here in the very near future, and the potential here is going to be maybe catastrophic in the sense that we just continuously have these kind of problems. At some point, this has to shift. And at some point, we're going to see that occur. How long before you start to see other opportunities around NFTs taking some different pathways?
Well, to be fair, Wax was started 4.5 years ago, which was purpose built for NFTs. You have Flow, purpose built for NFTs and gaming. You have
Yep.
Avalanche trying out NFTs. Solana, which I don't think is a great solution for it, but they're also trying. So there are, like everything in crypto, there are many, many alternatives always popping up. I've always felt that Ethereum would more steer towards DeFi, where you have high dollar valued transactions and
Right.
where security maybe is more of an issue for lots of people, and where a few $100 fees to clear out the queue doesn't matter. And so I think you're going to see more and more NFT projects moving to either layer twos, which have their problems, but are at least faster, or to wholly different blockchains.
Yeah.
And when you have large corporations entering the NFT market, which I assume at some point they will, many of them will probably build their own chains to do that.
Right. That's something that has been kind of circulating for quite some time is that, building out something like that, obviously with the capacity, is going to be critical, especially if you look at someone like a Starbucks or McDonald's, or you get into some of these
Yeah.
big fashion brands, or even into what we've seen already with things like Artifact and what Nike's been able to do. And there seems to be more and more leaning in that way. Obviously, there are some factors here with Wax. You guys have been doing this as well for a while. How do you guys stack up against, say, a Flow or a Binance Smart Chain if you compare those types of chains into what you guys are doing for a rollout?
Well, one, of course, we pioneered this, so we had a vision, and we've been iterating for over 4 years. How do we stack up? Well, we have never had any kind of congestion problem of any scale
Right.
going back for 4 years. And we have done multi million quantity drops. So we're not talking 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000. We're talking millions. 2 million, 3 million NFTs being dropped without any problems with the blockchain. So you can do it. And I don't know of any chain at all that has been able to do what we've been able to do. So the reality is the technology is out there. Others can copy what we do. It's not just the chain, of course. You also need a wallet that's easy to use that consumers are familiar with. And let's not forget, there's call it millions of people today using NFTs, but the mass market is billions. And to get there, even Wax would struggle with that. But you
Yeah.
won't be able to use the same approaches that are being done on Ethereum to handle even tens of millions.
Yeah, seems to be a short-lived scenario, I think, even though we've seen a lot of marketplaces build on Ethereum. But for long term, back to your point, and this is kind of the thing that really kind of caught my eye and leaned me into crypto in my tech and media background, was the future of NFTs. NFTs just, to me, were the killer app of where blockchain and Web3 is going to be going. So I would agree with you that we're going to get to a scalability issue across many of these chains. And I do think this is going to be
Yep.
a factor that we really have to face. Looking at that, because you mentioned something right there that I thought was important, and that is getting to billions on distribution. Let's say in the next 5 years, we could see that kind of adoption, especially with the use case for what we'll see in gaming, what we will see with now, what we've seen with Meta and Polygon trying to go with Instagram NFT integration. We'll see more and
Mhm.
more of that. This is early days. With that kind of
That's right.
situation, would Wax, how would you control something like that? How would you take on, someone, a global brand like a Nike or a McDonald's that's trying to roll out something to literally hundreds of millions of customers, potentially in a matter of
Yeah,
24 hours?
right. 24 hours, we could probably handle hundreds of millions, believe it or not. We've done, you know, uh, millions in a matter of hours. So maybe 200 million in 24 hours would be a stretch, but certainly 100 million. But in other words, order of magnitude where it is now using some of the technologies that Ethereum uses, you couldn't do it. But Wax really probably could scale. Billions, it's a different story. And we will have, I don't know how much your audience has thought beyond NFTs as media files. And the thing I'd like to emphasize is NFTs are computers. They're literally Turing complete computers that you can send back and forth to each other. And knowing that they're authentic, knowing the underlying source code hasn't been modified, they have applications across all industries. So
Right,
NFTs are going to be used for many, many things beyond pictures. And there will be billions and then trillions of NFTs for sure. And so, no, the systems today can't handle that. And then when you get into augmented reality, you will
right,
see, another level up. So it has to be built. The systems have to be built to ultimately get to that kind of scale, which will happen not in 20 years, but maybe 5, 7 years we'll be at those
mhm,
levels. So we're working on things like sharding. Sharding still is got a lot of room. I think with a sharding approach, you can certainly get into tens of billions. I, I'm not yet thinking through trillions, but we'll come up with a solution for that, I'm sure.
For some of our newer viewers and listeners, explain sharding and how it might work with a situation like an NFT.
It's mainly, you think of it as uh, splitting up the chain into shards. You know, shards are just like, branches. So splitting it up into many, many, many different branches, such that no one branch gets so congested that it can't move forward. In the old days of fiber optics, you would see a strand of fiber, and within it there would be 100 or so micro strands, and you would just add to the strands in order to move more traffic. It's a
Right.
similar approach, and it seems to work pretty well. I think that's as I said, that's a scaling solution to billions and trillions. We'll cross that bridge as soon as
Yeah.
we need to.
When we get there. Well, listen, we had to cross that bridge, in the evolution of just internet speeds. If anybody, watching our
I
channel
remember,
remembers, a 28K baud modem, you'll understand what we're talking about. And
indeed,
that's exactly the situation that we're running into. When you look at Meta and what Apple is doing, I know you're not a big fan of the big platforms, but Meta, of course,
hmm
partnered with Polygon and others to integrate NFTs into Instagram. They've also talked about charging a 50% fee for transactions, which to me, in this era, is still insane. What are your thoughts
agree.
on big business and how this is moving in that direction?
Well, I'm perplexed because Polygon had one DApp, one distributed application, a few weeks ago. I think it got up to 50 or maybe 100,000 people using it, and it collapsed. I mean, the chain stopped working for hours. Solana had a similar sized app, and the whole chain went
Yeah,
down for multiple days.
right.
Uh, so I have no idea what the people uh, at Meta, formerly Facebook, are thinking. But none of the brands I'm working with would have ever chosen those solutions because they want to do millions, in an hour or two, and it's not possible. I mean, Meta has over 2 billion users, right?
Right.
So I can only say maybe they're thinking of something I'm not, or maybe what they're thinking is they're going to do limited drops. If they only do drops of a few hundred or thousand, it's probably not a big deal. As far as the fees go, it's what I read, and let's face it, we don't really know until the terms of service comes out and we can read it.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah.
would say if anybody in corporate America thinks that you can charge fees upwards of 50%, uh, maybe for some very limited edition thing, but the mass market would never tolerate those types of prices. And so I don't think it'll work. But I would even go further and say I struggle with believing that they're going to actually have NFTs. If you look at
Mm.
something like Ubisoft, the video game company, they claim to have launched NFTs. I think they called them digits. That was their NFTs. Well, as soon as I saw a multi dozen list of restrictions related to their digit NFTs, I said, uh, NFTs don't come with restrictions. You own
Yeah.
them outright, and as long as you can put them in your wallet and do what you want to do on a blockchain, they're yours freely. Ubisoft listed things like you have to play the game for so many hours to be entitled to buy them. You can only sell them where we dictate you can sell them. We can freeze them anytime we want. That's a virtual item. That's just a video game virtual item. That's not an NFT. Um, I'm going to see, but I don't think NFTs in the way we all think of them in the blockchain world are consistent with the business model and the restrictions that places like Meta go. I mean, I just can't imagine. Don't you? They will certainly never allow you to mint your own NFTs because they want to be able to control content. So this is one of the problems we have in crypto is you can call something a thing, and because it's open source and there's no trademarks, that thing can be mislabeled, and there's no one to police it. And I think NFTs will become a term that will be so overused and misapplied, it will start to lose its meaning. And rightly, I think a lot of people will say, how are these any different than traditional virtual items? In the case of Ubisoft, I think they were not different. They're the same. And we'll have to see what sort of restrictions Meta puts in place on the NFTs it's going to produce before we can say whether they're really doing what we think.
Yeah, I think this is going to bring up you bring up a good point there, but I think it will bring the market to a place in which true NFTs have marketability that are quite unique and different than what we're talking about right now, which could be digital assets of many varieties, whether it's a collectible or some sort of utility asset that has certain function based on things you have to do. But I think if
Yes.
we really take NFTs as a whole, I think you're right. You're going to see maybe a differentiator that could really splinter off. We've seen this in other industries where it's kind of like having good OG product versus what's being developed and built on, some of these fast fashion products that are out there versus what you
Yeah.
see coming up in traditional fashion that are out there. I think that might be an interesting way to look at it in the sense of many brands and a lot of companies who start to adapt to NFTs. Definitely understanding where that's going, for sure. When
Yeah,
you look at okay, so let's
it's just anathema. It's anathema to most corporations
exactly.
to actually let the customers control the product.
All right, so I want to thank our sponsors today, and that is Margex. If you guys are looking at jumping into leverage trading, especially when the markets are as far down as they are right now, there's some definite bargains out there. So when you're in that kind of scenario, Margex has an easy and fast registration process. So definitely one to take a look at with up to 100 times leverage here. So you can kind of take a look at their website, a little bit about them. And one thing to be aware of is privacy, security, and transparency is a big key element in all projects that you should be, participating with it, whether it's your trading exchanges, different kind of projects out there that you're investing in. That's the kind of research that you definitely need to be looking at and doing. The other thing is that it's easy to both withdraw money and be able to move money in and out of Margex. So that makes it even better as a platform for trading, platform to use. And if you are looking at doing other aspects of it, make sure and check out their website. All you have to do is go to margex.com. You'll learn a lot more about their referral program, the overall Margex platform, fees, how it works. All that is going to help you guys out in your trading experience and also kind of how you guys might be looking to trade this market, especially in the downtimes right now. So make sure and check out the link below and help the channel out. If you look at Apple and, do you think we're setting up or is it brewing now to where we could have another, potential access content conflict like we saw with Epic Games and Apple coming in the area of NFTs?
No, because I'll go out on a limb. I don't think Apple will ever accept NFTs. I don't think Google will accept NFTs. I think
At all.
what they will label NFTs will be virtual items. And I think
Yeah.
those virtual items will be constrained by the terms of service and the restrictions that those app stores already impose on everything. And it's because they make their money on virtual items. Do they really want those virtual items minted in an Apple app and then taken out and monetized somewhere else on a permissionless open blockchain? I don't think they do. By the way, I hope I'm pleasantly surprised. But if they do that, their business model has to change. And they
Yeah.
make most of their profitable apps are games, and games monetize through the selling of virtual items. And today, Apple and Google do not allow you to remove those virtual items from the app. They
Yeah.
won't do it. So so they would have to change their business model. And the hardest thing in business is to change your business model. And that's
Mm.
why I think they'll use the words, and but they won't be. Disney launched through a partner launched what they called NFTs in an app on Apple, and I knew a lot of people said, "William, see, they actually did it," and I was like, "I'm going to let you buy them and see what happens." And sure enough, they realized, "Oh, we're not allowed to ever actually sell these things for real money. We have to sell them for some in-app currency, and you can never withdraw it." So I thought that was kind of like false advertising.
Yeah.
And people had to learn it. So for now, I think if you want to do anything innovative with NFTs and you want to own them and do the things that drew you to NFTs, you have to do them on permissionless blockchains, not
Yeah.
these big corporations. Ultimately, we'll come up with a word for it. It'll be like corporate NFTs or something, which basically means just virtual items that you can't do anything with.
Yeah. I like that approach. And of course, I just wonder how they're going to handle things like cloud wallets, because there's a lot of cloud wallets. Do you think they'll start cracking down on wallet aspects of especially what's running through the App Store right now? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, uh, they're always policing their terms of service. So and some things slip through, but for sure, if you're going to take possession of your NFT in an Apple app, and then go transfer it to Wax or Flow or Solana or Polygon, that's going to take away from what they think is their rightful product revenue in the secondary market, and they're not going to like it. So I think if they see a wallet allowing that, they would simply ban the wallet, which they do. They ban all the time. And
Yeah.
what I'm hoping will happen is there'll be enough educated people using real NFTs over the next year or so, such that when these bigger companies start to release NFTs that are fake, that just don't actually have any of the benefits and the characteristics that draw us to NFTs, that people will say these aren't real. And maybe the people will still buy them. They'll pay $1 for them, whatever they would pay for a video game virtual item. But they're not going to pay $10,000 or whatever the price is for something where you have full control. For instance, a lot of these NFTs will have capabilities that will allow you to integrate them in DeFi applications. I just
Hmm.
don't think Apple's going to want that. They will do
Yeah.
what they always do, which is restrict innovation, because by
Mm.
narrowing the amount of innovation, they can be confident that whatever that thing is in their app store, it's generating revenue for them in accordance with their business model.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wait a minute. I want to jump into a couple of hybrid NFTs that have rolled out, one being HRO. What are your thoughts on these? These are a little different approach where they've got a physical and a digital aspect to it. Do you think there's a future there for something like HRO?
Well, yeah, we were the first ones to do that actually 4 years
Mhm.
ago. We call these virals, VIRL NFTs. Viral stands for
Mhm.
virtual plus in real life. So I invented them. So obviously I like them. I think over the next maybe 7 years, not even 10 years, what you are going to see is many of the world's consumer products having digital twins. The digital twin will be an NFT. It'll allow you to do many things with it. And then, if you want, at some point after you're done trading the thing back and forth, let's say a tokenized sneaker, you'll be able
Mhm.
to redeem it on demand. That is a incredibly powerful new capability to add to consumer products, because so many consumer products these days are purchased by people who aren't the end user. They're
Right.
arbitrageurs, resellers. And so being able to just sell the digital version of it so you don't have to waste uh, uh, truck rolls and burn carbon is a nice thing. So I like these a lot. This is sort of where I was saying these are not just images, which most people think of when you look at an NFT. We're going beyond that to actually this integration with the physical and the non-physical worlds. So I'm a big fan.
I like it. Well, I set that one up for you. I knew we had talked about that in our last conversation, and I thought this is
Uh,
exactly what Wax did. So, it's right in that same vein. When you look at one
yes.
difference, though, I thought it was kind of unique is how did HRO manage to have a mobile app and then allow NFT integration with OpenSea? So, because that's now you've got a lot happening
Yeah.
here now. That's quite
Right.
different.
So I haven't seen it. I'll just say this. I assume you can view them in the mobile app. That's what I'm
Just
assuming.
can't do anything with them.
But you cannot buy them in the mobile app and then remove them from the app and sell them on OpenSea. Now, if
Ah,
that's not the case, then that would be a violation of Apple's existing terms of service. And it would just be a
exactly.
matter of the fact that Apple hadn't yet noticed, which is possible,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
But,
maybe.
right. Yeah. When Apple
Well,
ultimately, if they ever did change their policy, it would be huge, right? And we would all
oh,
know
it would
about it.
be that would be groundbreaking, in terms of how
Yes.
the adoption could really go. Because that ooh,
And for
big
video
deal.
game people like me, just the
Oh, it'd be
idea that you
huge.
could now freely allow people to take their virtual items out, even if they're not NFTs, and sell those, that'd be
Man,
incredible. There's $200 billion spent by video game customers every single year, 200 billion every year on
yeah,
virtual items. And that figure continues to grow. So, this would be a big deal. And mobile gaming is the biggest category of that.
right.
So, uh, I thought for a while that because it was such an inhibitor to have Google and Apple restricting what you can do with virtual items, I thought there would be a third app store that would pop up and
Mm,
allow that. But so far, it hasn't. And maybe it's
no,
just because it takes so much money to actually compete against those two guys at this point. I mean, even Amazon really kind of failed. They tried to do more of a mobile app with their Kindle store, and it never really took off. Samsung tried the same thing and ultimately just wound up using the Google Play App Store.
yeah. I think, it's possible we could see a Web3 component come into this just because of the nativeness right
Yep,
now and the size of the market. If you could get enough adoption, from the the Web3 crowd, then you get an
yep,
evolution spinning out of that. Then sure, there could be another Instagram, that really is homegrown before it gets acquired. It'll be interesting to see how that rolls
yeah.
out. Will we ever see wax NFTs on Vivi?
Uh, on BB?
On Vivi, on the app.
Oh, VB. I I don't know. I mean, Vivi is a mobile app, right? So
Yep.
I don't think it for these reasons. I don't think it would happen.
Yeah.
That's my thinking anyway. Um,
Yeah.
and you mentioned Web three. It's an important point to me. Everyone, Web three is like the word NFT. It means almost anything to anybody. But for me, it's this combination of NFTs, particularly smart NFTs, so AI
Yep.
enhanced NFTs, um, connected to a permissionless blockchain, an open permissionless blockchain, not Meta, not Apple, not Google, but permissionless, and that combination allowing a developer or a user to really be participating in a truly open economy where they can do what they want with those NFTs. They can build them, mint them, sell them without restrictions. So Web3 really is where Apple would have to go or Google would have to go if they decided to open up their platform and not restrict the flow of NFTs. They would be basically moving towards a Web3 environment, which I personally don't think they want to because they're making plenty of money now with a closed system.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I want to get into some of the Wax roadmap to kind of round up here. A couple of things here. Integration with OpenSea or NFT. Any plans?
When you say integration with NFT, you said OpenSea or NFT. Uh,
NFT
I'm
trade.
sorry, I didn't.
NFT trade. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
OpenSea or NFT trade. Being able to use
Yeah,
Wax
OpenSea
within
is
those.
mostly so Wax, of course, is a separate blockchain, purpose built for NFTs, and has its own marketplaces. OpenSea is really a an Ethereum centric blockchain, and while we will release NFTs on both Wax and Binance Chain and Wax and Ethereum. Uh, as far as Ethereum goes, I just, from a technical standpoint, it's got all the problems I mentioned, right? Very high gas fees and also volatile gas fees, and the dominant wallet on Ethereum is MetaMask, which is nothing like the really easy to use cloud wallet, the Wax cloud wallet. So I assume we will at some point integrate Ethereum into the Wax cloud wallet. Once we do that, we could issue a lot of NFTs on Ethereum, but the problem would be those NFTs would all have to be in the high price range because no
Yeah,
one's going to want to buy a $10 NFT if the fees are $20. And Wax
exactly.
is
Yeah,
focused on the consumer mass market, right?
yeah,
So lower priced NFTs as an entry point, which Ethereum really can't accommodate. So uh, for now, I'm more interested in expanding onto chains that can be scaled as
yeah.
opposed to Ethereum. Even though I'm aware there's a lot of people buying on Ethereum and selling on Ethereum, and I'd say that's mostly because that's what they hear of, right? But there's a reason Wax and Flow moved off of Ethereum because we were two of
Right.
the biggest NFT players, and it didn't work.
Wax game. Any of the Wax games that have potential, like say blockchain brawlers, in terms of volume out there that are coming. Do you see anything coming down the pipe?
We have a lot of cool games that are coming, haven't been released. The Wax Studios does. I've been in the game business for many, many years. You you don't know what's going to tickle the
What's
fancy
going to hit?
of the players. For about a year, there was a ton of interest in play to earn, and there still is. But when the crypto markets start to go down, people get less excited about that kind of thing. But they
Mm,
love the NFTs. If I had to make some, educated guesses, I would say the games will become more complex, not as simplistic as many of them are now. We tried to do some of that with brawlers. They will, there'll be peer to peer aspects of them, not just player versus game, and they will have higher level graphics. The NFTs themselves will do a lot more than they do now because the NFTs are going to get smarter. And of course, there'll be an augmented aspect to this too, as augmented reality becomes more mass market, probably in 25 or 2026. Um, I tell people it'll follow probably pretty closely if you looked at what happened to browser based games, Flash based games. They started out
right.
very simple and they ultimately got fully featured. We're sort of still at the beginning of that. And
Yeah, I think that's
and
a good example.
that's what will take it. Yeah, that's what will take it to millions of players. Right now, it's tens of thousands of players, maybe
Mhm.
hundreds of thousands.
What about upgradable NFTs? Anything developing within the Wax system? Something like what Engine is doing, where it has the ability to modify or morph itself. Any kind of technology coming down the pipe that we could be watching for NFTs in the future there?
Sure. So Wax was also the first chain to ever introduce that concept. But to be clear, we call it crafting, which is a gaming concept.
Right.
And you can never actually modify the NFT, right? Because they're unique. What you do is um, technically, and just so your audience understands, when you combine two NFTs and you birth a new NFT, what you're really doing is you are burning those old NFTs and creating a new NFT. You
Mm.
know, uh, you don't actually like take the existing thing and modify the code, at least not yet. But the concept itself is quite popular. For
Hmm.
instance, you open up a wax pack of 5 trading cards. Some of those cards are common, some are rare. It's a common mechanic in gaming that you give people something to do with the common cards. So maybe they can, if they accumulate enough of those, they can aggregate them together, and they can put them through a system and to get something else that hopefully will be something more novel. Uh, that is that's something a lot of people like to do with, and uh, and so I think, yeah, we like that mechanic, and there will be more of it.
Plans on metaverse or VR for you guys?
Yeah, we're evaluating that now. Again, for us, uh, as I said before, metaverse means something, you know, specifically to us. It's the ability to develop, to actually develop as a user, to do something on that in that metaverse, not just a drop down menu, which is kind of what you see now, like a menu of 5 choices. That's really not. That's more Minecraft-ish than it is like true, foundational level programming. So our view probably looks a lot more like, you might be old enough to remember Second Life,
Hmm.
um, that virtual world where
Yep.
the idea was there was fairly open economy. They did have a currency within there called Linden dollars, and people can operate storefronts and sell services in, as avatars in the virtual world.
Right.
That is uh, that's where I want to go. Uh, Technically, there's a lot to be done in that area, and it's beyond the scope of this conversation. But um, uh, there's things around Web 4 that need to happen in order to realize the full potential of Web 3. And at a different time we can
Hmm.
talk more about Web 4, but that's going to put some limit on what you can do. But the vision for this is around true freedom to develop within these platforms and create even your own businesses within these platforms,
Yeah.
which would be a stark contrast to how the app
Huge.
stores work. You look like you can do what you want, but that's not true at all. You're very restricted, and it has to be consistent with their business model. And the crypto world goes the opposite direction, where it's open and
Exactly.
permissionless, and you can do what you want.
It's definitely a new era. I think a lot of people don't realize, the evolution of where the internet kind of birthed from was what we're really kind of going into with Web 3, and your mention of where Web 4 is going.
Yes.
Already studying that, it's a full cycle. It just seems like it's coming back to where it was originally, and where a lot of the true pioneers of what Tim Berners-Lee, Linus Torvalds, some of the people that really
Mhm.
understood how open source works and how it needed to work, I think is starting to seep its way into Web 3. It's going to be interesting, but I think you're right. There's a lot of people that have their hands firmly gripped around the industry right now. Last question to you, William. Are we entering a NFT winter, or are we getting ready to maybe get a little lull and an explosion here?
I put it this way: NFTs are cryptos. Cryptos are all very correlated to each other. For your audience, for instance, Ethereum, Solana, Wax, all of those tokens, they are uh, 70 to 90% correlated to Bitcoin, and then other tokens are correlated to each other. So they're not
Yeah.
perfectly correlated, and you can have periods of time where they depart. That certainly happens. But given that fact, uh, uh, and given the fact that when people are flush with crypto wealth, they're more likely to spend it on something like an NFT. Absolutely, the volumes are going to pull back. The volumes of just overall crypto trading have dropped, maybe 45% in the last quarter. And NFTs are following sort of that same pattern. And I always expected that as well. And so I don't know if it's a winter just yet. To me, winter is like more than a year long
Yeah.
slog where we're more than 50% off the highs and doesn't look like there's any real rallies to get above that. I've been through a lot in 11 years in this space. Um, I would just leave you with this, though, to give your audience a perspective. History is a very useful guide in crypto. Really is not day to day or week to week, but it helps for the long term. And
Hmm.
a lot of Bitcoin, which drags the other cryptos along, a lot of it is influenced by these periodic cycles that we call the halvings. Every four
Right.
years, the amount that a crypto miner on Bitcoin gets for mining a block gets cut in half. The last halving was May 2020. The next one, call it May 2024. It's about every 4 years. Where are we now? May 2022, right
Yeah.
in the midpoint.
The middle.
Historically, during that mid time, we're in the doldrums. There's
Yeah.
just, a lot of the excitement for the last halvings petered out, and we're waiting for the next one. So the
Yeah,
next
for sure.
super rally, I would think, is 2 years away. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that within this super cycle, you can't have bumps. And we did, in 2018, we had the emergence of exchange issued tokens, which did a lot. You could share in the profits
Hmm.
of the exchanges. In 2019, we had the beginning of tokenized tokens, which led to, in 2020, a core element of DeFi. And then in 2021, you had NFTs. 2022, we're kind of taking a break. I haven't seen something of that order yet, but there'll probably
Yeah.
be one of those new innovations before the next halving. But this is the time to be building. And frankly, this is the time to be acquiring tokens. They are cheaply priced during this
Yeah.
period of time. And
Exactly.
be careful, do your work. You don't want to buy into a Luna, a stable coin
Yeah.
that's just fundamentally flawed. So there is no substitute for doing some of your own work, but guys like you help. There has never been a technology in my lifetime where there's been more available, high quality content to educate yourself than in the crypto space, but you do got to put
Yeah.
in the time. And this is the
Yeah.
right time to do it in preparation for the next halving.
For sure. Last one to you. Do you think blockchain gaming can hit a trillion by 2030?
A trillion in revenue. Well, let's put it this way: global video gaming does 200 billion.
Hmm.
Right? Global video game with about 2 billion people. So could it hit 5x that? I would say that's probably too aggressive. I think it can't do that. Much of that is because blockchain is still more difficult to use than
Mm.
traditional video gaming on consoles or PC or mobile. I'm bullish, but not that bullish. I do think,
Okay.
though, it can be as big as traditional video gaming by then.
Oh, interesting. Very cool. William Quigley, always fun to talk with you. We definitely got to dive in deeper soon, especially on the Web 4 topic, because I think you're right. There's some things brewing right now that need to take place
Oh
for
yeah,
an evolution that we're going to see in the next decade to happen for sure. But thanks again for stopping in today. We appreciate it.
always a pleasure. Bye bye.
Excellent. All right, so you guys are tuned in over on the podcast side of things right now. Best thing to do is jump over here to the YouTube channel. This is the place to catch us all. Sorry for my voice. I'm trying to recover. I should be back in studio next week. But of course, if you want to reach me out there over the weekend, it's at Paul Barron. Happy I always try to, chat with you guys all the time. But just reach out to me if you have any questions. And we'd love to get your comments below. Always love to kind of get your feedback on where you think content should be going here on the channel. Stay tuned and we'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.